Okay, so we have the top off the mower. I have it propped up on a 5-gallon bucket. Um, this starts assuming that you've already gotten the cover off. There's enough videos on that. 4 screws in the front, 4 in the back. And we are doing the bearing replacement. So this one I already did, but then we're going to walk through the same procedure for this one. So you can see here this one, the one I replaced. Now listen to this one. So we're going to make that noise go away. It appears to be only the lower bearing, not the upper. And we're going to start down by low by taking the blade off and taking the screws out, which was already covered in the previous video. So I'm going to go ahead and, or in the video done by others, I'm going to go ahead and take the blade off, loosen those bolts, and then I'll start at the top where we'll take it out and everything else. So one tip here, when you're down to the last bolt, take them all out and then just put the second to last one in just enough, and it'll prevent, when you're cranking on this other one, the very last one, it'll prevent the motor from flopping around up in the housing. So this is this finger in there, just barely in there. I'll take this one out and then this one, and it'll just secure the motor so it doesn't flop around. Alright, so another thing I just want to call out real quick is the screws, the 6 screws that hold the motor in, they use a red Loctite, which is not meant to be removed. Whereas, for example, a serviceable part like the blade uses blue Loctite. Do not put these back in as is. We're going to need to clean those grooves as well as the grooves inside the motor housing as well. I'll show you how to do that later on when we get to the bench vise. Okay, now that the motor is free in here, I suggest taking the ring off here on the top first. Before disconnecting the wires, it just gives you a little bit more room to get in there. So we'll take this off, set this aside. And now, as we can see here, we disconnect the main power cable. This one pulls out. Sorry about that. And then this control one here, same thing, we push down and it'll pull out. There we go. And we carefully lift out the motor. This rubber seal, be very gentle with it. The heat and everything, it will tear very easily. So try to be very careful, not to like resist the urge to clean it right away, it'll tear. So just try to be very careful with it. Okay, we got the motor out. Okay, before we go over to bench vise, let's talk about a few things here. So first off, the motor spins like this, these vent holes, right? You can still hear that grinding. You don't need to remove this. Now we flip it over here, let's talk about why we're actually having this problem in the first place, right? So you can see this is standard in motors, okay? In drives. There's a bearing down here and a bearing lower and upper. We have a snap ring, we have 2 brass washers. Now, typically, like if you're working on an axle of a car, this bearing is protected in front by a wheel seal or a seal. This bearing is exposed to all the elements of mowing. Even if you're mowing and dry, there's still moisture from the grass itself, twigs thrown around, and then if you got, we have Spanish moss here in Florida, you got fishing line you might get into or other stuff, it's going to wind around the shaft, and it's just bad news. So that's why those recommendations to put the wheel seal on there and prevent it, maybe even with some grease behind it, is really a good thing, and why we get into this scenario. You also can see that red Loctite I was talking about. We're going to need to clean that out here and inside the grooves as much as possible before we put it back together. It'll make things easier. But that's our goal, is to take this apart, and we're going to replace that bearing right there that has a model number on it. You can already see that it's scratched up pretty good. So let's get to this. Let's go over to the bench vise. Okay, here we are over at the bench vise. Sorry for the messy environment, but you can do this without a bench vise, but if you have one, it really helps. I'm going to protect the motor by just wrapping rag around it. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to clamp onto, I have to clamp onto the top part here, right, in order to get this snap ring off, because I need to hold this to prevent it from moving. If you clamp just on the bottom, you're going to have movement. So let's just go in there, get the bench vise open up nice and wide. Like I say, if you don't have one, you can get by. Just be prepared to have a lot of frustration. And if you don't have one, you might consider getting one. When you're doing bearing work and stuff like this, pressing, it really helps. So okay, so now that we're in there, you have the that's the snap ring, and that's what we need to come off. Now there's various snap ring tools. I would say that it's something you don't want to, you know, try to just do with screwdrivers. They make different kinds, but the concept here, and I'll try not to get in the way, is we're going to take these two teeth here, we're going to put it down into the snap ring, we're going to pull out and then up. So let me get a better situation for it, but that's the goal. Once the snap ring's off, then we can pull the washers out and then talk about the bearing. One thing to note, I think it was talked about in John's video, there is, see this gunk here? We want to clean that off so that these rings and washers and the bearing and everything will slide out easily. Now when you're doing this, you want to try to work it evenly, because I don't know if if this is a standard snap ring size or not. It probably is, given that the bearing was a standard size. But I'm just casually working it up shaft, and eventually we'll have it off. And there's brass bearings down there, as you see. There's our snap ring. Then we'll want to inspect it. If it needs to be tweaked back, put it in the bench vise and get it back nice and straight and level. Now if that's out, you can see here are the brass washers. Take those off. Be careful with them because they are brass. So we'll get those off. I cleaned this shaft off, but I may not have done it as good as I should have. So definitely clean it when you go to put everything back on. Alright, so I'm going to work these off, and then we'll be back in just a second. Snap ring, brass snap ring. There's two of them. These are necessary to ensure the proper spacing between everything. So we'll do this, and then we'll show taking the bearing out. Okay, so I brought it back out here. Now that we got all that off, we can pull the motor apart. The reason we need to pull the motor apart and pull this back off is so that we can punch this bearing out. Okay, so now this is, be very careful here. Just remember, these magnets are strong and it can suck back in and pinch your hand. So now we're like this, we're just gonna pull. Let's see if I can get, there we go. Sorry, I had to bring it up to my chest. And there we have it. Now remember, these are magnets, in here. See them all on the side. So don't set this next to some important electronic equipment or anything like that. We don't need this anymore. And now you can see here's the upper bearing. So here's the upper bearing and there's the lower bearing. You can put your finger in here and notice this bearing is same one, same model, goes very smoothly. This one here, you'll notice, you can't hear it here, but this is where you'll have that that roughness depend upon how bad yours is or not. So we have to punch these bearings out. Now, there are tools for this, and it's called a blind bearing puller. And what that means is when it's blind, it means that you can't get to the other side because it's blocked by something, so it's blind. And you can look on YouTube, there's a lot of guys showing how to use blind bearing pullers. But we're not going to need to do that, I don't think. I'm going to clean this up real good around the edges here, get all that gunk off of there. And then we're going to put this back in the bench vise, and we're going to punch down at an angle, going very slowly around, and we hopefully should get it out. Okay, cleaned up. Now I have it back in the bench vise upside down this time because we need to punch that bearing down and out. So hopefully you guys can see here. You can see as we look through, we see the other bearing. And the goal here is we're going to use a tool. I'm just going to, for example, use a socket extension here. And I'm going to slowly work my way around, hitting this evenly, and then checking on the other side, making sure I'm getting progress. I'm going to punch that other bearing down and out. Be careful when you're doing this. We don't want to damage this bearing. And don't just start whacking heavy on it. Just taps all the way around, you know, that side, then this side, then left, then right, then back and forth, etc. So you try to evenly punch it out. So I'll get positioned and we'll give it a try. Also, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're hitting on the bearing, not the walls of the actual motor. If you're curious, you can always just double check, you know, take your time with this kind of stuff. It's how this stuff goes. And we can see, hopefully you can see now, we got some progress. It's already moved out further than what it was. So let's just keep going with this and see what happens. Sorry, I'm not too good at making these videos, but I didn't want to delay any longer because I know a lot of people are asking how to do it. And I appreciate if anybody who's done this already has better tips. And there it is, out it came. So there's our bearing. There's the bottom side of it, okay? And one important thing to note, it fell on the ground here. There's this washer here, okay? You're gonna have to reuse this. So when we go and look, this washer sits down into that space, and then the bearing falls in. So now that we got it out, we need to go clean all this gunk up, and then we'll come back to reinsertion. But that's, if you got this far, pretty much you're home free. So. All right, guys, so here I got that all cleaned up in there, looking a lot better. Now we have the housing with the magnets. I'd suggest cleaning this out too. There's a lot of dust and debris that gets in there. it's going to happen again. But you know, while we're in here, and then while you got this free as well, clean any score marks. That groove where the snap ring goes in, make sure that's clean as well, so you get a nice tight fit on the snap ring. So we're going to go and do that, get that cleaning done, and then we're going to put the assembly, the magnet housing back around the windings. All right, here we are, we're back. The motor housing is through. Be careful when you do that once again, because it is going to pull pretty hard. So we got that, we got it cleaned up. So now we can start reassembly. So here's that, don't forget that ring, that washer. Drop it down in there. Okay. Now here's our new bearing, and you'll notice, right, when you compare it to the one we had, this is a lot smoother. So we're going to drop this down in there. It should go pretty easy. Now, pressing it down in, it's gonna, your miles may vary. You don't want to squeeze it too tight in the bench vise, or else you'll distort it. So it should drop pretty much down in. Now, unlike with the getting it out, when we're putting it in, we gotta be careful, because this is a good bearing. We don't want to damage it. So we're going to show some tricks. We need to get this down as far as we can first. So let me go grab a tool. Okay, so you can see that this will move up and down, and we need to get it quite down below where that snap ring level is. Let's put our washers on. And then our snap ring. Gotta fight with these things a little bit. Okay. Okay, now we're down, but we're not home free until that snap ring goes all the way down and slides into the slot. So I'm going to attempt this here in a second. If it doesn't work, I'll come. All right, so one thing a trick a lot of guys use is they try to find a socket that can sit on top of what you have here, and you can usually get it down in there enough until, I think we can see it there, hopefully, that we snap in there. So you're going to want to check all around, all the angles, but that's sort of the idea with this stuff. Let's make sure, I think we have it. And one of the key parts with that too is that make sure that snap ring was really, nice and level and uniform and not bent. So with that, all right, good news. Looks like we're spinning pretty good in the hair. And as you can see, our snap ring is into the slot. So now I'm going to talk about reassembly and then also these the Loctite. Okay, so for these screws, I like to get the gunk out. I like to put the actual bolts in a bench vise, and then I sort of clean the grooves with a small screwdriver, needle, razor blade, whatever you want. And then I like to hit them with a wire brush, just to all around on all the sides. And then what I do So I take them, so I do this to all the bolts, and then after that, I go into the motor, and I'm going to clean out in all the motor, and then I'm going to work and screw in each of the bolts into the motor by hand out, so that way I know the grooves are clear and it won't be a pain, and things should go back together smoothly when we actually are at the mower and we're not in ideal standing or sitting conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with all 6 bolts and all 6 threads. Okay, all the bolts have been cleaned, and I cleaned the threads in the motor housing. And as a reminder, I'm just going to take each one of these and then going to thread them in and out of each of the holes just to make sure that everything's good. Okay, mower dropped back in the top. The wires are plugged back in. Cage on the top was put back in. And as I put the stuff on the bottom, as a reminder, I finger tighten just 2 on either side. That holds the motor stable in there, and then you can start tightening up the rest. Also remember, there's rubber washers here as well. So let's get them all screwed back in and then go from there. Okay, so motor's back in, both not making the noises that they were before, so that's great. I'm going to pause right here before putting blades back on because I want to sharpen mine. But there's already been videos about this. These wheel seals, strongly recommend, now that you're at this point, you got good clean bearings in it. It involves taking the spring that's in here out and then cutting that part there so it's flush, and then these will fit over top, and you can push them in, and they will protect those bearings from moisture, debris, etc. I might even go as far as to pack them with wheel bearing grease and then push them on just to help a little bit more. So my next thing, this pretty much completes the bearing side of it, but also want to mention, I put these in. I'm going to run a test to make sure everything's going real good. I'm not going to necessarily mow. I'm just going to spin the blades and ensure nothing sounds funky. There's no unevenness or rattling in case I didn't get a bearing in 100% level. And then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to take each of these bolts out one at a time and apply blue Loctite to them and put them back in. I know red Loctite was in them. You could do that again. I only have blue Loctite, and also they may need to come out again. And then lastly, when you reinstall the blade, clean as much of the blue Loctite out of here before you put your blades back on. So I hope this was helpful. I'll hopefully have this online and patched together in a little bit. All right, got the little guy back out here, booted up, and let's run a test here to see if we notice improvement. So I'm gonna just start the blades going, and hopefully it'll sound good.
Attention, lawnmower starting now.
That's much better. All right. Oh, music to my ears. All right. Well, gonna go put those Loctites on there, clean the deck, sharpen the blades, and send them back out to do its job. Okay, so deck blades back off, and just to talk about those seals, here's the ones that have been shown to us before in the forums. Here it is after the spring is removed and the inner is cut out, and then I decided to pack it with wheel bearing grease, and then I'll slide them in, push them on there, tighten all the bolts, Loctite, and then clean this deck up and then spray it with the graphite lubrication. Sharpen blades and we'll be going.